Class 6 and 7. This is a continuation of previous video. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Dalinaidu Panchada. If you are watching my channel first time, please subscribe to my channel. Clause 7 talks about support functions. It's more into resource to implement ISMS framework in your organization. This is also one of the clause required to define in your framework. Support functions subclause 7.1 resource. To implement this framework in your organization, you need some resources like people, process, technology, and all. First of all, for example, if you are implementing ISO 27001 2022 now, you need to upgrade your infrastructure, or else some tools you need to upgrade like DLP or MDM solutions. That is required. What are the resources required to run this? Those things you need to capture here. And subclause 7.2 competency. Competency is also one of the important clause requirement. The person who is driving this entire assignment from end to end implementation, they need to have some competencies. At least lead auditor, ISMS lead implementer, they have some idea on that how to implement the standard in your organization. Also require that experiences and educational training and awareness of ISMS. 7.1 and clause 7.2 is important to need to document those things like resource. What are the resource required for this implementation, like process, people, technology, and also some standards, experienced person, and also the skills required. Once you done this implementation and you are going for that audit and you get that certification, how to manage that one in future means, so you need to perform some internal audit on a regular basis, and also you need to deliver some trainings to that employees. Those all things you need to consider, and the person who is driving this ISMS framework have a good understanding and knowledge on ISMS standard. That helps to drive this assignment very easy. And also it is easy to train the people within your organization with this reviewed and governed by your top management. Already we discussed this one in our class 5, how to define your ISMS policy in your organization. What are the things you need to consider while defining the ISMS policy? And also awareness of ISMS to the employees who are working under the scope of this ISMS. They need policy and the basic awareness sessions like password policy, access management, security incidents. If any security incident happen, to whom they need to report that one. What are the channels you have within your organization? Those things you need to mention very clearly in your 7.3 awareness sessions. Cover those all things. And subclause 7.4 communication is nothing but the communication you are doing within your internal organization and your vendors, subcontractors, external means how you are communicating about your information security management system changes or any updates. What is the platform you are using to communicate with your vendors, stakeholders, and any relevant parties and customers? External communication, what are the platforms you are using? And also internal communications about information security, how you are communicating that one to your internal team. Means maybe you are using some Teams platform, or through emails you are communicating, or an L&D related activities, or L&D related activities. If any awareness sessions or anything um, driven done in your organization. Subclause 7.5 documented information. In this we have three subclauses. We'll start with first one. Documented information is nothing but the policies, the procedures, work instructions, guidelines, and apex manual. Everything you are defined about your process and documented, right? Those all are called as documented information. If you talk about 7.5.1 general is nothing but the general information and all the templates you are using, and also what are the things you are going to cover in that, the naming convention of the document, which section is it, policy or procedure, or work instructions, manual. Example, I'm telling you the version control how it is. Example, if you are creating a policy, access management policy version, initial version 1.0, last reviewed is on xyz date. If you have some changes after 3 months, you need to update that one with latest version 1.1, so and so that you reviewed and approved by your top management like CISO or CTO, whoever it is. And second, 7.5.2, creating and updating, as I mentioned to you, right, the versions. If any changes happen in the process level, you tailored something in your existing process. In such cases, you review those things and update the version and release the latest version to all the stakeholders who is required for that. And 7.5.3, control of documented information. The documented information, you need to be control everything, means because it's a organizational level policy documents that is defined by top management and governance, and the governance part is also taken care by the top man. Clause 8 talks about operations we already covered in sixth clause, planning stage. It's more into risk assessment and risk treatment part. In risk assessment and risk treatment, we already gone through with those things in planning stage. That is nothing but your clause 6. I already explained about how you are identifying the risks, what is the categorization of your risk, and what is the priority and impact likelihood, and also shown few sample risks, and how, and also shown few sample risks and treatment plans, how you are going to mitigate that risks. Right, in detail we discussed in my previous video, planning clause 6. If you are not watched that one, I'll put that link in my this description. Please watch that one. I'll clearly explain everything in that video. While coming to this clause 8 operation, subclause 8.1, operational planning and control. Operational planning and control is nothing but how you need to establish the criteria for the process. Means establish the criteria in the sense risk management policy already defined. You have some criteria, risk criteria, and also you define some risk acceptance value in your policy. And to mitigate or to reduce the impact of that risk, you have implemented some controls. Those controls also I'll explain in that video very clearly. And subclause 8.2, information security risk assessment, how you are identifying that risk, how frequently you are reviewing that risk, what are the methodologies you are using to mitigate that risks, and how you are calculating that risk value, like impact into probability or likelihood, like you are getting some risk value. And the risk acceptance value, what is the organizational level risk acceptance value, and how you are going to mitigate those things. If you found any critical risk, what are the action plans you are prepared to control that impact of that risk. Those things covered in this risk assessment. And subclause 8.3, information security risk treatment. Information security risk treatment is more into like, you are already have that risk assessment plan. In that plan you also have that risk assessment risk treatment information. For example, if you identify one risk like unauthorized access to the confidential data, that is the risk you identified. You done some probability and impact analysis, how frequently the same risk occurred, and what is the impact if that risk is having. You need to identify those things and calculate the risk value. You get some value xyz, or 10 or 20, the value you receive. To reduce the risk value, what are the controls you are applying? Means you are frequently reviewing that access, whether right person having the right access or not, you are verifying that one. And that is one control. Another control is to check whether this person is really required that access or not. Those things you need to have all in your risk treatment plans. And also once you have these controls, you calculate the risk reschedule value. Once you calculated that risk reschedule value, you get some value like risk value, risk reschedule value. Maybe it reduced it from previous value to this value. Like that you need to plan your risk assessment and risk treatment plans. This is what the video for this clause 7 and 8. Clause 9 and 10, I will prepare that video and upload it as soon as possible. Please subscribe to my channel.